Welcome back, folks. I'm Frizz, and today I'd like to take some time to talk about encounter design. Now, while I haven't actually made any encounters in 2E since I've never GM'd 2E, I've been in a hell of a lot of encounters, so I've got a pretty good idea of what makes a good one. One thing that may not seem readily apparent is that weak enemies, or just easy fights, are actually incredibly important to utilize. For the record, everything that I'm saying in this video doesn't just apply to combat encounters. Encounters are just a general term, and it's easier to come up with examples for combat encounters. Easier challenges are important to throw in the party's way, even if you don't resolve things by hitting them. Alright then, let's talk about encounters. They vary wildly in difficulty in Pathfinder 2E, and that can understandably leave a bit of a sour taste in your GM's mouth if things don't go the way that they're expecting. After all, it can be really rough if all of the monsters can hardly do anything to the PCs, or if at the end of the fight the PCs have taken literally 0 damage, which has actually happened to me before. This is especially true if you're trying to make a climactic sort of boss fight and it just all goes south. I feel like this can lead GMs to lean away from making lower difficulty encounters, or even just including low-level enemies that aren't going to end up doing all that much in encounters. After all, those easy encounters have the possibility of coming off as underwhelming, and the last thing you want to hear from your group after an encounter is, well, that was boring. Part of the reason why I'm even making this video is because Paizo does this as well. Adventure paths are filled with fights against single powerful enemies, and while those fights are often very nail-biting and very fun, there's a time and place for them. See, a problem with constantly having hard encounters or high-level enemies get in the way of the party is that the party often doesn't feel super cool. Everything feels risky and tense because if you mess up, things can get real bad real fast, since everything is stronger than you. You have to struggle for all of your victories and successes. Even if you level up and become objectively stronger or more competent, it may not feel that way since everything that you fight gets stronger as well. So the solution is to not always rely on terrifyingly strong enemies making combat scary. Throw in an easy encounter every once in a while that's made up of enemies that are 2 levels below the party or even lower than that. Yeah, the odds of the PCs getting, harmed or truly being at risk is basically 0, but it's amazing for stress relief and making the PCs feel like big damn heroes. After all, well, big damn heroes have the capability to scrape by with a victory against a mighty dragon. They can also absolutely style on some common bandits, and it's fun to show that off. Not every fight has to be really life or death. A fun way of showing this is with recurring villains. If a group of thugs gets into a fight multiple times with a party, it can be a really good way of showing how the PCs have grown over time. Because if they fought them once at level 1 and then again at level 5, it's going to be a completely different story, and they're going to completely wreck those thugs, but it's going to be an incredibly cathartic experience. Now I know that not all kinds of campaigns or situations fit these sorts of easy combats. If you're playing a horror campaign, it can be a bit hard to get into the horror mindset of things if you can undeniably kick the horrifying monster's ass in a stand-up fight. But in most campaigns, variety is the spice of life, and having a wide variety of types of combats is good. Just because a fight is hard or difficult doesn't mean that by association it is good. Thanks for watching. I'm not a GM, so take what I've said in this video with a grain of salt, but in my experience, campaigns that are just full of super tough fights can almost get exhausting to play. While I do love playing APs, Paizo absolutely tends to make encounters with single high-level enemies. If someone from Paizo actually is listening to this, thanks. And also just give more encounters mooks, and then slightly reduce the power level of the single powerful creature. It makes for a way more interesting fight. What do you guys think? Let me know in a comment down below. And regardless, until I see you next, live a wonderful life.